Hi, Rahul. Hi, Ankit.
Hi.
It's wonderful to have you here. Just to set a context for our audience, can we first start with the omni-channel offerings of Razorpay and Reliance Retail?
Sure. So, Razorpay, we are into end-to-end money movement services, and we do power payments and payouts for multiple retailers, both online, offline. And from an omnichannel perspective, we provide a single unified experience across money movement, both online, offline, unified for the retailers.
So I think for Reliance retail specifically, I would say omnichannel means offline first. And then even today from a revenue contribution perspective or a user perspective, online comes second. And that's how the organization and our even use cases are evolved over time. And specifically the vertical which I lead into luxury, etc. So it's more offline first, and then we're trying to replicate that behavior on online.
So today, with all the virtual try-on technologies that are available, women can try accessories online without visiting the physical stores. They can try their favorite shade of lipstick. They can try how a piece of furniture looks in their homes without ever stepping out. So where do you see the next wave of personalization happening, with so much already happening without them crossing the confines of their home?
Should I go? Okay. So I think personalization is an interesting topic. When we talk about e-commerce, most of the users think personalization is about what you see on a list page, the recommendations, what kind of, let's say, payment gateways options which you see when you go to a payment page. But in offline, it's pretty different. So you have to decide across, so Reliance Retail is probably Asia's biggest fashion and lifestyle offline network. So we have to define which store, there are almost like 1500 to 1800 stores, in which shelf, what kind of products users will see, and what kind of sizes are to be stored in those places. Because let's say, if we talk about a pack of 7 sizes, the propensity of a person in Meghalaya to buy S and extra small is very different from somebody in Punjab to buy extra small. And so we have to think personalization from that side. The second aspect is we have to ensure that we are not stock out around specific time period, maybe festivals. At the same time, we also have to ensure that we don't keep those things pretty long. Then otherwise, the next month's drop will not give the throughput which we require. So although I come from an e-commerce background, and it was a learning for me when I come to Reliance and think about those use cases. So offline is pretty different and unique, and comes up with their own unique challenges compared to the world of Myntra, Gojek, etc.
Rahul, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. See, from my perspective, I think personalization is a evolving journey, and I think in general the industry has been evolving quite fast. But still, I think still industry primarily is at the stage what at least I would like to say recognize and recommend. Like for example, today if I go to a particular app and see, okay, I log in again, the app is able to recognize me, is able to recommend me, okay, what I should buy. Say from a grocery app, it would say, okay, this is what I bought earlier. They recommend a few things. And in fact, most of the user experience I see, either in online or offline, is more or less stuck at the same stage. Recognize me and recommend me. I think where I see some early shoots of the next phase of AI or personalization is where they're able to anticipate and advise. Like for example, if I go and buy on some grocery app, if they can anticipate, okay, this is what my buying behavior is. Today I have logged in on Sunday. Typically I order say 3 days grocery in advance, and therefore they are able to anticipate what I buy. And therefore are able to advise me, okay, this is what you're able to buy. So this is I think still I would say in general few level of personalizations there. But as a consumer, I think the final stage is where I'm able to co-create with help of the AI. Like today, for example, I might be using a Fitter app or a Healthify app, and I also use a grocery app. Now, again, I know while there are data privacy things and data can't talk amongst 2 different apps, but somewhere I would like to at least from a user perspective, which we see, the expectation is all about, okay, they're able to see what phase of the journey I am in my life, what is the context, and therefore what they should really be able to co-create for me. Say in the carts, in say a grocery cart is able to create a cart for me which is specific to my health needs, specific to therefore what I should be buying. So it's a journey, and this is happening at different levels, either in the purchasing behavior, post-purchasing behavior, or the payment transaction behavior.
Also, with all these, technological interventions that you spoke about, how does one measure the return on investment? There are traditional metrics, of course, but is there a need for a change in those metrics?
I can take that because at Razorpay, actually, this is a big change that we are going through right now. Traditionally, in most of the companies, there would be the marketing function, there would be the product function, and there would be the customer support function, which would be measuring different OKRs, different KPIs from their perspective, what works for the customer overall engagement perspective or the effectiveness of the AI in the customer, the entire interaction. Marketing would typically be looking at the CLTV versus CAC ratios. Your product team would be looking at some kind of engagement ratios, or rather some of the product performance metrics, and your support teams or operations teams looking at typically TAT or CSAT kind of things. Now, over last several months, we have been trying to use AI to see how can we take our experience to completely next level. And quite frankly, on the ground, we hit a roadblock at one point where we saw, like traditionally, all these three functions, while at some level they collaborate, they work and chase very different KPIs in terms of what it means for their function, their success, and what has been traditionally defined. But the moment we started thinking about, okay, how we can take it to next level, it is practically impossible to have these three functions work in isolation. They have to work really as a crack team, which come together and get it solved. And fundamentally, I think, at least from when we started deep diving into it, the only measure which really helped us, okay, this is what makes sense in the new age, is either the customer lifetime value, or it is the customer engagement or the relationships, which is either reducing churn or increasing retention. These are the only two metrics under which all these three teams can kind of eventually work to achieve these goals.
Ankit, off stage, we touched upon, how it is no longer about the revenue derived from a square feet of, physical store. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Sure. So I think I completely agree with Rahul. So on a long-term, retention metrics, CLTV, etc., or which stage you are, definitely matter. But just taking a little bit digression from that, for personalization, it all depends on the industry type as well. So for example, when I was building the initial recommendations at Myntra, so it was more about how do I ensure some of the key North Star metrics, which is revenue per user, is continuously increasing between algorithm A, B, C. Secondary, I would look at some secondary defensive metrics like CTR should keep on increasing from, let's say, list page to PDP, add to cart should increase. Because in an online world, there is no constraint about the rack space. So I can easily simulate what somebody would see in let's say, Andhra Pradesh versus in Lucknow versus Gorakhpur. But in offline world, things are a little different, and that's why metrics is also different. So in an online world, revenue per user will remain the primary metrics for evaluation. Then comes CTRs and let's say percentage of people who click on the first 48 products. We used to look at that, and that helps us evaluate how easily we are able to solve the problems of users in personalization. But when you talk about offline world, the rack space is very limited, and everything ties up with revenue per square feet. And then below that, what is the actual revenue we are making, top line minus the cost of running that store, the salaries, the electricity bill, etc. And then we reach to that metrics. And that is something which we try to optimize. This is very different metric compared to an online space, because there, as I said, there's no limitation of rack space. But in offline world, there is. And we have to consider that when we are designing all the personalization or recommendation engines for stores.
Now, coming to data, it is the backbone of all personalization, all recommendations. So how do retailers collect this data without while maintaining trust with their customers and not be too invasive with collection of that data? How does one do that?
Okay. So I think it's about being transparent with the user that we are collecting XYZ data, and these are the use case we are going to solve for you. ABC. These are the use cases which will solve for you, and that's true for any geography in the world. Some countries are like more clear about how you must be declaring it at what stage, and some countries allow a little more leeway. And that changes, the regulation changes even within Southeast Asia. Indonesia may be different from India, and Germany may be different from US. But yeah, I think these are the basic premises, that you have to be transparent with the users and highlight it to them that this is how you will use it for. But there are obviously gray areas which can be utilized. I mean, not something like people should do, and I don't agree to that either. But those things are possible, I would say.
Yeah. On this, I really think the answer is two parts. One is how do you maintain the trust with the customer, and second is how do you go and implement internally. And I think both are fairly. At least second part is fairly complex. First, on trust, I completely agree. Like I think I have seen instances where a lot of places the consent is taken without clearly saying what this data is being used for. Like for example, at Razorpay, at least when we take data or we store a card, it's very clear this is for kind of making your future transaction successful. And then that's one part of trust. Like when you collect data, you clearly say why you are collecting it. I think second important part, which in India, in generally, I see a lot of companies not doing a great job in terms of giving customers the control of their data. Like for example, once I have given the data, can I easily go and change the settings of my data? Okay, yeah, I gave the consent, but now I want this data only to be used for, say, recommendations and not for, say, affiliate marketing. So that control of what data I gave, I think that's in a kind of missing. Third, I think, and we're talking about some example, like how this data is used, where customers sometimes might lose trust or sometimes might not lose trust, right? In terms of this data is either being used very contextually to give you the right kind of messaging, or giving a messaging which is very invasive. The example I gave, like a Sunday evening, if you get a message that, okay, your family of 4 is hungry, do you want to order biryani? It's fairly invasive, right? So this is about the overall trust part of it. I think implementation part of it, I think is, in my view, is even more difficult. The way most of the times we have built products, data privacy is a afterthought. Still, I think as organizations, we have to build that muscle where data privacy is embedded in the design of the product. Every PRD that is written, it has clearly mentioned what are the data limitation guardrails around it. So some of, or even like today, one of the problems organizations face is data is so disjointed and in different parts of the organization. Even if a customer comes and say, I want to delete my data, organizations have no way to figure it out, like where all the data is. And therefore having this entire trail of data, what is residing, why, and therefore having full control of data for an individual customer, I think those are the real complex implementation challenges that has to be solved for.
Right. Ankit, we were talking, off stage about how AI may be all pervasive now in all consumption baskets, but what part of it can be augmented by AI and what part of it can be replaced by AI? Which part should be human powered and which part should be AI automated? Can you touch upon that?
Yeah, I am not one to decide which part should be regulated by AI or which can be. Obviously, it depends on the customers, how they perceive it. It's a trial and error. So one of the brands which we work in, Reliance, like as you said, some of the use cases are very, I would say, I won't say easy, but they're fairly common, like lipstick finder, shade finder, try on, virtual try on, and there are little more complications. For example, and in some of the companies, you will see how this, let's say, furniture will fit in my room using AR specifically, and utilizing that technology. Then there are furthermore, for example, we are discussing that the biggest cost in going offline earlier has been retail store, taking all the approvals, cost included. Now there are technologies which give you an offline experience of in store, like in a 3D, at any part of the world. So we are using some of those that, for us in the luxury shopping experience which I lead, it's very difficult to open such a luxurious store in every part of the country, but we want users to know about it. We want users to experience that. So we tied up with a company which can actually create a 3D version of the stores, which they can access any of the world, anytime on mobile apps or mobile websites, everywhere. And that bridges the gap between an actual store and online. Also the cost or ease of access, the time of access, and then we merge it. Let's say you want to visit to a store, you can take an appointment on specific days. You want looking for specific products, we can arrange it for you, and that's where I see AI and personalization experience coming together, both for offline and online. I do not know that okay which one is what customers would prefer. I'm assuming that okay, with time and more advancements coming in, more use cases will be solved, and some of them will prevail and others will probably perish.
Is it necessary to have physical stores to create a truly omni-channel experience for customers, or is it all right if it is just mobile apps and e-commerce websites?
No, I think it depends upon every individual business. But to answer your question, like creating only online omnichannel experience is possible, and tell you why, right? Because today offline presence is just one of the channels the way consumers think about it. If you look at it, online it is apps, it's websites, it's conversational apps like WhatsApp, etc. There would be there are other ways to kind of even different forums, etc. online where people kind of do all this purchasing behavior. So when you try to think of a omnichannel experience from a consumer perspective, whether I go on my laptop, whether I'm on my WhatsApp, whether I'm on my app, or whether I'm on social media, I should be able to see the same. For example, again going to the earlier example, if I bought something online on a grocery store, I should be able to have a similar view, similar experience across all these four. And same from the organization perspective as well. Like they have to have almost practically a headless commerce engine, and on top of it, kind of 4 different user interfaces which kind of connect seamlessly. So it is possible to experience. Now, also second part is the consumers today don't think of omnichannel just as I said, a pre-buying, buying, or post-buying journey. Today, when you look at a lot of companies, the omnichannel experience is also creating the right kind of forums. Like for example, you create a forum on a Discord or somewhere else, where consumers connect about, like say, take example of the fashion retail, right? The entire online community where a lot of consumers come together and kind of discuss different things. It is also part of omnichannel experience. So yeah, I think online only definitely possible to create, but again it depends upon what is the business requirement, whether it's an online only business, it's offline only business, or a combination of two businesses.
Ankit, would you weigh in on the?
Yeah, I think definitely as I said, this is depend on the product which you are selling. Some of the products have to be experienced, like perfumes, right? You will obviously not be able
Great
to
example.
evaluate a perfume or aroma or candles or things like these, right? Similarly, let's say how a carpet will go with certain kind of curtains or tiles. You literally have to go. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not possible. The tech will be there, but it will be probably too expensive to build something like this as of now. So some of these use cases have to be experienced. And when you go and see all things together, furniture, this kind of curtain, these kind of paintings, and the decor together, that's when the things come alive and give you a different feeling. And yeah, and that's the example where I would say offline will still be there. Similarly, I would say very common use case in fashion, like how does it actually you feel in touching a fabric? If you have been ordering the same fabric, same brand, same size, then it is still okay because they have been consistent about it. But people want to explore, right? In that case, for an offline company to really differentiate, let's say Lulu Fashion or something, that my material is different, I have done patents about it, then they really would like to see and touch it before consuming that.
there's been a decline in the use of third-party cookies, and we were talking about this, about how increasingly first-party data would find significance in increased personalization. So can you touch upon that, third-party and first-party data?
Sure, the third-party data is actually decreasing more and more with third-party cookies going down. So at least I see 2 or 3 big impacts coming out of it. First, with data available to companies, which is very specific to the data they have collected, it is going to be a competitive differentiator. If the quality of third-party data, which today everybody can source, it is either poor or you can't source it, that data becomes really a priced commodity. And therefore, that's a competitive differentiator. Second, I think the second level effect of it would be, how do companies really collect more data about the consumers? Because if it's important, I think companies will have to invest towards having more deeper relationships and the engagement with the consumers. For example, today, if any new app comes in and who knows that, okay, I'm a typically online shopper with this kind of user profile, they can always try to kind of sell me through recommendations, okay, you can buy this. If data is not available, they will have to kind of keep, once they acquire me, they have to keep engaging with me in multiple ways to know more and more about it. So therefore, how to create those deeper connections and engagement, whether through surveys, whether through gifts, whether through promotions, whether through gamification, or that will become very, very important, that second part. And third is, I think, one good thing about it probably, it's still like even today and future, it's going to be the AI models are going to be far more accurate and far more accurate if it is built on the first party data. And therefore, the challenges that we keep talking about and earlier discussing about the wrong recommendations or some of the errors that the AI does, some of those will go down, and which will essentially reduce the creepiness that the consumer kind of feels about this data or the false negatives that come in. But yeah, those are 2 or 3 things. And the companies like retail, Reliance, etc., which has a lot of data where customers kind of, where they call or what they buy, whether grocery, fashion, have a lot of data. I think there's a strong moat that they have on which they can build very, very strong businesses based on personalization, personal experience of the consumers for them.
Ankit, I think you made it clear that cross-pollination of data does not happen.
Yeah, I think I'll not, because there are regulations around it that, okay, what we can share even within BUs or not. And not just for Reliance, even Flipkart, Myntra, etc. So
maybe that's a better example, but yeah, for example, the companies which are into multiple lines of businesses or multiple touch points with the consumers in the same business, yeah.
But I'll still answer the first party versus third party. So bigger retailers, I mean, frankly, with the advancement of technology, the dependency on third party is very minimal, I would say, coming from a tech background. So I don't know, some of you may know that, okay, the first and biggest advantage which TikTok had over anybody else, that they were able to solve the cold start problem really well. What does it really mean? That, okay, if the new user comes, how do you personalize their experience with a minimal amount of data? And you will see those kind of intent questions in a lot of other apps. Like if you go to Savan or let's say Spotify, they will ask you what kind of artist you like, what kind of languages you like, or even Netflix. They ask these questions so that they get at least some hints and to solve the cold start problem. TikTok actually had a patent around it, that how they initially solved, and then Instagram and others followed, and even ShareChat in India copied and learned from those language models. But that's the way to go, that, okay, you learn initially from your customers and then marry it with the point you were making earlier about a customer life cycle. So as a customer grows in their life cycle, we learn more. I mean, I won't name the company, but for example, in that retailer, we had models which we call as short-term intent versus long-term taste profiles. And we knew exactly what is the threshold after which we should switch from one algorithm to the other. So over a period of time, companies build those capabilities, and that actually becomes their moat. That's where I see the industry going towards.
So I'm told time's up, so I'll just take final comments from both of you on what do you see as the next big frontier in AI on a retail playground, despite what's happening now, despite what we've already achieved in personalization and AI-driven omni-channel experiences for customers.
When I think of retail, right, both online and offline, today I think still a lot of focus of the AI or data is on the personalization or customer acquisition. I think the next phase where the real value could be unlocked would be probably, in my mind, supply chain, especially with the hyper-local and quick delivery becoming very, very important. I think how AI is used, and we spoke about the retail, the rec space as well. Even some of those problems, and see again, personalization, what they will buy, therefore where they will buy, and therefore what to stock, and how much to stock, and which thing to stock. All of these are connected. Like so fundamentally, we have just started solving for the top end of the problem. All of those significant problems, I think using AI would be kind of significantly. I think that would be the next major thing would be happening. And the second thing I would say, I think still, as I was saying earlier, the ability to co-create, because now with AI, especially in digital content or digital perspective, what you want to create for a individual can be very, very customized, even from a brand messaging perspective, what you create for them, what kind of post-sale service you give it to them. So hyper-personalization would be the next phase, to extent where probably we have not even thought, like practically for every individual, a different kind of messaging, a different kind of product, a different kind of experience.
Ankit, your thoughts?
Yeah. So my take is linked to all the other things which we have discussed today. So I see that working in and I've worked, designed some of the very sophisticated algorithms, I see that if one company gets so much data, that becomes actually a very powerful moat for them. There are many players in India, I won't name them, and the kind of experience you would see without even realizing, they will be much superior than compared to other retailers. So what I personally feel is, let's say somewhere regulations have to come that, okay, this moat has to be democratized. Let's say I am a retailer, I know about certain behavioral pattern about a particular customer. There is a pay which knows about payment mechanism. There is a loan app which has been giving, let's say, credit, maybe the banks. Somewhere else has to really reside and know better about the customer, amalgamating all these various factors, multimodal, and then also allow some new players to come in and catch up. So for example, I'm a new DTC brand. I can hardly ever compete with likes of Zepto if I'm in FMCG, or in Myntra, or Jio if I'm in fashion, because the kind of moat and experience, the value which they already have. And somewhere the regulations have to change that, okay, it's possible to really know about the customer by some identifier with certain regulation around it, so that they can actually come and compete and then also build next level of products, which is completely personalized. For example, I don't really have to care whether I am in food app X versus food app Y. I get the similar kind of experience. They both literally know the similar kind of information, and they know that, okay, on weekends I order biryani versus dahi bhalle on Tuesday at lunchtime, and then I should have complete freedom to then design the experiences and then choose the products.
Thank you so much, Ankit and Rahul. It was great talking to you, and here's to hoping that in the future we have more personalized, more relevant, and more productive recommendations from retailers. Thank you so much.